On this edition of Whether or Not, we have Nature in the News stories that include the new evacuations being ordered in Southern California along the burn scars from this past fall's wildfires due to the threat of landslides. We also have a story that includes the hazardous air quality in Central Asia. And Mike Susko also has a package that details how students here at Penn State take the observations that go down in history books for our weather in State College. All that and more, Whether or Not, starts right now. And welcome to this week's edition of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Patrick Ray.
And I'm your forecaster, Matt Hoenig.
And I hear, Matt, we have winter coming back, or at least making a return in the next couple of days. So what can you tell us?
Absolutely. We had a little bit of snow last night. More snow in the forecast this weekend, and this snow coming up could be plowable to perhaps significant in some areas, and that's going to affect your weekend plans. So we'll have a look at that coming up in my forecast in just a couple minutes.
So definitely winter coming back here in central Pennsylvania. But first, we have Nature in the News.
Portions of the Asian continent have been plagued by dense smog over the past few weeks. In a story published by the Associated Press, urbanized areas of Thailand observed unhealthy air quality levels due to a combination of construction dust, automobile exhaust, and other pollutants. In the city of Bangkok, unusually high levels of particulate matter that could potentially clog lungs and airways were measured. This was likely caused by emissions from diesel engines. In South Korea, high dust levels prompted emergency measures to reduce potential health hazards.
If you were wondering why winter has gone, look no further than Eastern Europe. More specifically, the Germany, Austria, and Sweden portion of the continent has seen an enormous amount of snow this winter, disrupting travel with road closures, rail closures, and even delays, and impacting vacationers the past few weeks. The biggest part of the snow story is beginning to be the avalanche danger in many of the region's mountains and ski resorts. This season alone, 3 hotels have been hit by avalanches, one in Germany and the other more recently in Austria and another in Switzerland. The Germany avalanche struck a hotel that was partially closed, therefore empty in the impacted site at the time. However, the Austria hotel was struck at 1 a.m. local time and housed 60 guests with no reports of injuries. So far, 26 people have died as a result of the snow this winter, ranging from avalanche accidents to vehicle accidents and fallen trees. Back here at home, winter seems to be getting a shot of adrenaline. We will have more on that in the forecast later on in the program.
Criminal charges were filed against 2 South Carolina law enforcement officials that were transporting 2 mental health patients who drowned while locked in the back of a van during Hurricane Florence. Authorities said the 2 deputies were driving through Marion County to a mental health facility as part of a court order when their van was tragically swept away by rising floodwaters caused by torrential rains brought to the state by Hurricane Florence. The Associated Press states that the deputies tried unsuccessfully to rescue the 2 women from the van, which was on its side, blocking the door the deputies would have needed to unlock with a key. When rescue crews finally arrived, the van was underwater and the 2 women were unable to be saved.
The fires from this past fall in Southern California continue to impact the people and neighborhoods around them. A series of wet and potent Pacific rain systems this past several weeks triggered new evacuations along the Woolsey and Holly burn scars near Malibu, California, due to the threat of landslides. Riverside County issued a, quote, must-go evacuation order along the Holly fire burn scar. At least an inch of rain has fallen around Los Angeles this past Monday. Typically, after a fire has scorched the earth, especially in the hilly and mountainous regions like Southern California, heavy rains can trigger landslides much easier than if the vegetation were still on the slope. This kind of situation is reminiscent of the Montecito landslide last year, which killed 21 people in the early morning hours of January 9th after heavy rains triggered a landslide from the Thomas Fire burn scar. Minor landslides due to the heavy rain are impacting local roads, at one point closing a 4-mile stretch of the Pacific Coast Highway, canceling school for Malibu students.
Well, it is the middle of January here in State College, and that means it is the dead of winter, and it's certainly going to feel like winter over the next several days. I'll discuss all of the details in just a moment, but let's talk about the big story at hand, and that's the significant snowstorm that we're expecting at some point this weekend, or perhaps maybe some wintry mix in there as well in terms of precipitation. I'll talk about that in just a moment. We had some light snowfall last night, and that brought a quick inch or two to much of Pennsylvania. That system now moving into New England, and behind it just some leftover snow showers, primarily in the eastern portion of the state. But then come tomorrow, that's when we're going to see more in the way of wintry weather across a good portion of the Northeast. Now, this storm is going to track to our south and hug the coastline, and as we're recording this forecast here on Wednesday, there's still a lot of uncertainty as to just where the storm is going to track and how much snow will actually fall. So you want to stay here right on CNET and receive your latest forecast from the Campus Weather Service. Over there, they'll have more updates and probably a better idea as we head into the weekend of just how much snow will fall across Pennsylvania. But nevertheless, this is going to be a very sharp divide between who will see an abundance of snow versus who will see less snow. And that'll be because we'll see some rain or perhaps even freezing rain or sleet mix in with the precipitation. Either way, this could be a pretty significant snowstorm and have significant impacts for your holiday weekend. During the day on Sunday, though, the system moves out into the Gulf of Maine. Behind it, some leftover snow showers, primarily for New England. Some could sneak into eastern Pennsylvania, especially during the morning and early afternoon hours. And then behind the system is another big story that we'll be talking about, and that's the cold temperatures moving in just in time for Martin Luther King Day. And I'll talk more about that in the extended forecast coming up in just a little bit. So your forecast for Friday looks like this. Leftover snow showers primarily in the eastern and central portions of the state, and temperatures will reach the middle 30s during Friday afternoon. It does clear out in time for Friday night, so your Friday evening plans are good to go. Just some overcast and perhaps some breaks in the overcast, especially as we head later into the evening hours. It will get quite chilly overnight. Temperatures will fall back into the lower 20s. Now for the day on Saturday, it starts cloudy and then we'll eventually see a period of moderate to heavy snow develop primarily during the afternoon and evening hours. And in some places it will get warm enough, perhaps just enough above freezing, that we could see some freezing rain or sleet mix in. Then into Saturday night, we see a period of a wintry mix or perhaps heavy snow just to the northwest of where the freezing line will be. And then come Sunday, we'll see some snow primarily during the morning hours. Then it'll clear out for the afternoon. Temperatures will struggle to reach the middle 20s, but we will get there. But then, as I said, as we head into Martin Luther King Day, that's when the real chill starts to settle in. And I'll talk more about that in our next forecast coming up in just a little bit. But I mentioned some very interesting weather happening this weekend, and us students here at Penn State are going to have to come in during the weekend and take some weather observations. And our next story from our very own Mike Susko features just how we take those weather observations.
Temperature, wind, humidity, rain, snow, and pressure. We have all heard them before during an evening weathercast, but these are just not some random variables meteorologists use to fill time on air. Every day, at 12 o'clock England time or Z time, thousands of volunteers across the United States take weather observations and send them to their local National Weather Service office. The National Weather Service's Cooperative Observer Program, also known as COOP, is a network of meteorologists and other weather enthusiasts who measure important weather variables over the past 24 hours for their specific location. I sat down with our very own Matt Hoenig, a member of the Penn State Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Science COOP team, to learn more about this unique relationship between the National Weather Service and weather enthusiasts all across the country.
It's cool to be a part of the tradition of students taking weather observations here at University Park, and I know a lot of upperclassmen when I got here that did it, and they sort of told me about what they did, and it was interesting to take weather observations, so I decided, why not? I'll give it a shot. So I come in around 0Z, which depending on the time of year is either 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. during daylight savings time. Usually I come in and record the temperature down in the shelter on the first floor outside of Walker, and then I'll come up here to the main weather center up here on the 6th floor, and I'll take observations such as sky cover, pressure, indoor temperature and calculate things that I measured outside, such as relative humidity, dew point, things like that. And then if we have precipitation, that's really interesting, because then I go up to the roof and take a look at whether we got rain. If we got snow, I have to take it down here and melt down the snow and get a liquid equivalent, and of course measure the snow, which is fun as well. So after I take all the numbers, I put them into a computer program on the internet, and that basically sends all of the data to the National Weather Service, and then they compile it at the end of each month, and they create a monthly weather summary for State College.
While some may dread going out in bad weather, sometimes it is the unpleasant weather observations that brings the most excitement.
I remember taking an observation, and we got, I think, almost an inch of rain. If you recall, 2018 was a very, very rainy year here in central Pennsylvania, and that observation put us over the 50-inch mark for the year, and we ultimately ended up with over 60, I believe. So it's kind of fascinating, because that was one of my first weather observations, was taking that, and to think we had 10 inches of rain after that in the coming 3 months is just really something pretty outstanding, and certainly it was a record-breaking year for rainfall.
Weather observations are also collected from airplanes, ships, and buoys all over the world. The sea of weather observations helps to give meteorologists and forecasters an idea of their atmosphere's current state and what changes may be lurking in the future.
After this weekend system moves through, it turns much colder come the beginning of next week. I'll talk more about that in the extended forecast in just a minute. But first, I really do want to hone in on this weekend system. This could bring significant impacts for your holiday weekend. Some snow showers move out of the region later this afternoon. Temperatures will reach the middle 30s. And then for the day on Saturday, snow develops from southwest to northeast, could eventually become a wintry mix, especially across the central and southeastern portions of Pennsylvania, and with that we could see some icy road conditions, especially into Saturday evening and overnight Saturday. As the cold air rushes in behind the system, we turn back to snow come Sunday, and temperatures a bit colder during the afternoon hours, only in the middle 20s. But check out that low temperature Sunday night, down to 0 here in State College, and some places in Pennsylvania could be in the negative single digits come Monday morning. So some extremely cold air moving into our region. Let's get a look at that extended forecast and check out Monday, only reaching the teens for high temperatures across the region. At least it will be dry, so you will be able to shovel out after the weekend snow. However, please do take it easy as you're shoveling, because you could get frostbite very easily, especially with the cold temperatures and the wind that's likely to come along with the cold. Come Tuesday, we moderate a little bit. Temperatures still quite a bit below average, only in the middle 20s. We return closer to normal come Wednesday with mostly cloudy conditions. And then Thursday, we actually go up into the 40s for high temperatures, some showers possible, mainly during the morning and early afternoon hours. And then behind that system, come next Friday, we could see a few scattered snow showers, and temperatures returning to somewhat normal, maybe just slightly below normal for this time of year in the middle and upper 20s.
So Matt, the cold weather is coming back. I know you just came back from Phoenix. So are you wanting to miss that? Did you want to miss that flight at this point?
I had to come back and tape this show whether or not, but Patrick and the rest of you at home, I don't want to brag too much, but it was in the low 70s. It was sunny in Phoenix. This is quite the change coming up this weekend and into next week. Of course, that snow that I mentioned earlier on, and then much colder temperatures moving in for Martin Luther King Day, unfortunately.
Oh, it's going to be cold, but our Weather Whiz quiz question was much colder. So the question was, what is the lowest temperature ever recorded during the month of January at here in State College? A, negative 10 degrees, B, negative 18, or C, negative 25, or D, negative 37? And if you answered
B.
B, negative 18 degrees, which occurred in 1994 as the record low temperature for the month of January.
The last time here in State College we were below 5 degrees below zero. That happened in 2014 where we hit a freezing cold, bone-chilling temperature of -9. We could challenge that in a couple places in Pennsylvania, probably not here in State College, although it may fall below zero. But Patrick, that is mighty cold. I don't even want to think about that.
I have sweaters on the way. I hope they get here in time. Well, that's all we have for this edition of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Patrick Wright.
And I'm your forecaster, Matt Hoenig.